This is Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. It's a little thing we like to call Front Page. Every week I sit down with another journalist to talk about the biggest news developing right now and how it affects the Pacific Northwest. And joining me today is Jane C., who host of CityCast Seattle, podcast you can find wherever you get your finest audio products. Jane, thank you so much for being here. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Libby.
So you know how this works. We're just going to dive right into a series of the top stories that we're thinking about today. And let's get to the first one.
When you're in the dark and you want to see, you need electricity.
Electricity. That's the subject of our first story. Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson is getting some heat, that is a utility pun, about her decision to fire the head of Seattle City Light. This reporting is from friend of the show, David Croman, over at the Seattle Times. I'm quoting him here. Wilson last month fired CEO Don Lindell and announced that longtime City Light worker Craig Smith would step in as interim before former EPA Administrator Dennis McLaren would take over as acting CEO early next month. That is coming up pretty soon. Labor groups are not happy, reportedly, and members of the city council, several of them, have called for a change of course. Now they're also putting conditions on the next hire. This is pretty interesting. Here's part of a letter that Dan Strauss and Joy Hollingsworth, council members, sent to the mayor. During the Enron financial scandal, Seattle had a CEO of SCL, Seattle City Light, who was a good person and an experienced administrator, but lacked utility experience. This lack of utility experience led to a 58% rate increase and a $500 million in additional debt, while neighboring Tacoma, who had a CEO with utility experience, responded with grounded leadership and avoided the harm SCL experienced. Ooh, that is putting a lot of weight on this hire, Jane. So David points out that Council President Hollingsworth and the chair of the Finance Committee, that's Dan Strauss, they kind of have the keys to the payroll here. And they're saying unless there are these XYZ qualifications for the next head of City Light, they're not going to approve it. So Dennis McLaren's supposed to take over March 4th. How would you like to be him right now?
Oh, man. I mean, he is going to be making $500,000. So at least he's got something going for him.
Nothing to sniff at, yeah.
A little payment for his troubles. I am really curious why it has risen to this level now. Because, I mean, we've known for I think the last month that he was going to become the new director.
Yeah, the interim for now.
Sorry,
the
interim.
Acting. Yeah.
Yes, the acting. And I mean, I'm curious at what point this got escalated that the city council decided they wanted to get involved and to send this letter.
Yeah. It sounds like the union disgruntlement also played a role here. So there was apparently the IBEW 77, the union that represents the local electrical workers, they collected 6,000 signatures to try to get Don Lindell rehired. So like the idea first was to actually just completely overturn the decision. And then it seems like that didn't get traction. And so now the focus has been on who's the next person,
right?
You know, who is going to actually fill these shoes in the long haul. And, you know, the idea is that McLaren, who's a lawyer, he doesn't fit the bill.
Right. I mean, I don't know that much about what is typical for being a utility CEO. So I know Lindell came from another utility, has previously been CEO of another utility, and she only came to us in 2024, I believe.
And
so
she's been here for like a year and a half.
Yeah, she's really not been here for very long. And now we're moving on. And I think also, as far as we know, Wilson's not given a reason for moving on here. And I know people have questions about why that might be.
Yeah, they have said, and they said to David Croman at the Times that, you know, there'd been some confusion that Dennis McLaren would be the permanent pick to head the agency. Well, they're saying that that decision has not been made and that, you know, this acting position is really acting and that there will be a search. Did you know about the drinking scandal? Had that come on your radar when you were reading about this?
I heard about it and honestly did not do a very deep dive because there are always people doing things they should not be doing on the job. But tell me a little bit more about it.
So just to kind of review here, one of the things that Don Lindell was navigating was this scandal that included 40 employees at Seattle City Light, maybe in counting. I don't know if it's been completely wrapped up yet, but the investigation implicated 40 employees for drinking on the job, on sites, showing up for work drunk, sexual harassment, and extorting apprentices. And they would do these like big parties when somebody would be promoted, basically. They would do these big drinking binges. And the way it came to light was that a female cable splicer reported that she had actually been sexually assaulted. She'd been raped by a supervisor back in 2011, but she didn't report it for another 10 years. And this kind of cracked open this culture of like permissiveness and drinking and just really bad stuff going on, a pretty damning investigation. Well, that cable splicer herself is now suing the city because her name was supposed to be anonymous. And instead, coworkers found out, and apparently she was retaliated against. And I mean, this is still going on. Like, she just filed a lawsuit over this in September. So a rocky road. I mean, obviously, the issue of green energy and everything like that is a big priority for Wilson. But there's also issues of HR management and everything else going on at City Light.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think all of that really goes to show how much coordination the CEO needs to have, right? Like, you've got the political aspect of it internally with this HR nightmare happening. But you've also got to work with cities and tribes and think about climate change and the long-term viability of our hydroelectric power in the state. I heard that one of the things that the next leader is going to have to do is relicense the Skagit and Tolt dams. And I know that the Tolt Dam was built in like the 1960s, and I think it's doing okay for now. But I mean, all of that like long-term infrastructure stuff in addition to the day-to-day management seems like a very specific skill set. Yeah.
We'll see how it unfolds and how Wilson responds to what seems kind of like an insurgency between the council and the labor groups here pushing back. But for now, let's go on to our next story.
Police say the 27-year-old was crossing the street we just showed you when she was struck by the vehicle. Now, fire and medics did try to revive her on scene, but she sadly didn't survive.
Okay, this story is one that you are going to handle, Jane Hu. I'm talking, by the way, on Front Page with Jane C. Hu, the host of CityCast Seattle. This is a story that you recently tackled on your show, and it involves the city really moving away from having people be able to turn right on reds, right? What's going on here?
That's right. So you might have heard, Libby, last week that a 27-year-old woman named Liliana Moreno was killed walking across Pine. She was struck by a Toyota Prius that was turning right onto Pine from Bellevue, and tragically, she died from her injuries. I just want to give a moment and say her friends say that she was like a deeply empathetic, hardworking, funny, thoughtful, and multi-talented creator. It is always a tragedy when someone is killed on the streets of Seattle. Yeah. And I mean, in this particular accident, it happened on that corner of Pine near the Pine Box, if you're familiar.
Yes.
The fancy soap store Aesop is right there, too. And Capitol Hill blog reported Tuesday that SDOT removed an old utility pole that was blocking the walk signal. It's not clear if that was actually a factor in the collision. But another factor that people are talking about here is that the driver was turning right from Bellevue onto Pine, and that is how this collision happened. We actually had a listener who wrote in to ask us about this because they said that they started noticing more of these no turn on red signs going in, and they wanted to know if they actually help with pedestrian safety. I mean, Libby, have you seen these around town, like in your neighborhood?
Yeah, I have seen more of them, specifically downtown, not in my area, but I have noticed more and more, and I've sort of trained myself now to look before I turn right on red, because it used to just be an unconscious thing.
Yes.
But what's going on with that?
So I guess I should say right on red dates back to the 1970s. I did not know this before. So this was something that happened during the 1970s gas shortage. So the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, which was enacted in 1975, required states to permit right on red as an energy saving measure.
Really?
Yes.
Because people would be like idling, waiting for the red to
Yeah,
change.
this was like
That's
the era.
fascinating.
It was like the era when, the trucks were all going 55 because that was supposed to be like the most gas efficient speed to be driving. So this is a relic of the past. I don't know that we need to be saving gas at every intersection where you could be turning right on red anymore, especially now that we have a lot of hybrid and electric vehicles. But it seems like there's been a lot of research on this right on red phenomenon that suggests that stopping that right on red can really help decrease collisions. So there's an early 2025 report from the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State that found that most drivers don't actually come to a complete stop at these intersections, and that right turn collisions at intersections with signals were responsible for like almost 40,000 collisions in California over about a decade and 217 fatalities. It's a lot of accidents. And the city of Seattle put out a memo in 2023 referencing some of this research, saying that right on red is not that great and maybe we should have no turn on red instead. And essentially the plan is that each time there's going to be work on an intersection, they're going to try and update the signage. So this is kind of rolling out gradually. Hence, I think people all of a sudden noticing these signs. Like in some cases, I think they do go up literally overnight from some people's perception because the city is going in and changing them out. So I'm assuming we're just going to see more and more of those as time goes on.
Yeah, it's really good to know, especially in context with that horrible accident last week on Capitol Hill. I do think that people are so used to the turn on red that it's hard for them to adjust. I always see folks barely tapping the brake right before they pull around the corner. And most of the time you're looking for oncoming traffic. You're not necessarily paying as much attention to the pedestrians in the crosswalk.
100%.
Yeah. So fascinating. And I think, again, really, really good to highlight changes for drivers and something that everybody should be heads up about as they get around town. Let's move on to a story about real estate, about the beautiful game, and about how you can get paid to go on vacation.
If you have a nice place, and your girlfriend has a nice place, and you spend way more time at her place, well, then your place is an Airbnb. Airbnb it and get paid while you're away.
There's some advertising for Airbnb, probably the best known. I mean, no, undoubtedly the best known short-term rental company in the world. Friend of the show, Alexis Wiesand at the Seattle Times brings us this one. It's a real talker, as they say in the radio biz. Is that how they refer to it in the podcast world? Real talker.
I have not heard that term, but it is immediately obvious to me what it refers to.
Stick with me, kid. You hear all kinds of terminology like this. So the question is, should you rent your home on Airbnb for the World Cup? Alexis at the Times has written this guide for what it takes to do a short-term rental and what to keep in mind if you choose to do this. 150,000 plus fans will be in the Seattle area starting in the middle of June to cheer on teams from all corners of the globe. Airbnb is offering this extra perk for first-time hosts. It's like
$750, baby.
Yeah, $750 on top of what will already be inflated prices for these short-term rentals. This is going to be a high-demand few weeks in June and the beginning of July. I just looked up the schedule. The first Seattle match is Belgium versus Egypt at Lumen Field. That is June 15th. The last one is the round of 16 game. Question mark who's going to be playing on July 6th. What do you make of this, Jane? I mean, a lot of people will probably take this offer considering $750 plus. Gosh, these prices are going up as the demand goes up. That's a lot of cash. You can go on vacation for a few weeks and come back maybe with more money than you started.
It's possible. I mean, I've seen places going for several $100s up to $1,000 a night, which I mean, I don't know what kind of fans have that kind of money, but that
the ticket prices themselves alone mean that you must be Scrooge McDuck.
that's true. Yeah.
And I am paying for a game, so I know.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Dang. Okay. Well, clearly you can't Airbnb your place.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I have to find a way to move in with you. Will you let me move in with you
Stay in
during
my
the
basement.
World Cup?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Then
You'll
I
make
might
a little
be
bit
able
of
to
money.
pay for the tickets. Yeah.
I'll take like a 20% surcharge if you're going to Airbnb your place.
You
That'd be
deserve
great.
it. Yeah.
I do wonder how many people are going to take advantage of this. I know that in Alexis's piece, she talks about how to be able to do this above board, technically you need a business license to be an official short-term rental. My question, never having been an Airbnb rental, how many people are actually getting the proper licensure? Is it something you actually have to show to Airbnb in order to...
Girl, that is the big question, right? Because I know Seattle in 2017 limited new short-term rental hosts to just 2 units, except for downtown. So there's like a limited area. I believe it's between Olive and Cherry downtown where you can have more units. This is what's called the Downtown Urban Center at the time. They allowed that to be the carve-out. But, if you go on Reddit, if you go, talk to people who are in apartment buildings, they'll say, I know somebody in this building owns more than 2 units and they're using them as Airbnbs. So the question of how the enforcement is working is a very live one, I think. I know in Los Angeles, it was also, found to have a ton of unlicensed short-term rentals. So this is a big deal in a lot of big cities. The taxes in Seattle on short-term rentals are supposed to go to fund affordable housing. Washington State looked at this idea of allowing local governments to levy, I think it was a 4% tax on short-term rentals, and this was supposed to, be worked its way through the legislature this session. That seems to have stalled out. Did you get the texts from Airbnb about this?
No, I did not. Nor have I ever heard any kind of advertisement for them. So that was interesting
that
to
was
hear
new.
that clip. Yeah.
So Airbnb texted me, and I don't know how many other Washingtonians when this legislation was still live in Olympia, and basically called it the vacation tax.
No
way. For people who come to rent, and they had a huge project of working on regulations for short-term rentals. I don't know.
Fascinating.
I have complicated feelings about Airbnb because I think that living in a community where a significant chunk of the rentals are short-term rentals, that's just like kind of a hollowed out community, right? But if you own a place, if you want to make a little extra money, it's hard for me to say you're a bad person for doing that, right?
Especially in this city where everything is so expensive.
Yeah.
If you're going to go away for a while, you might as well. But I got to say, I miss the old Airbnb when it really was just people who were out of town that weekend and wanted to take advantage of maybe having their house occupied while they were gone.
Or like your basement or your extra room or something.
Like my favorite Airbnbs have always been the ones where the hosts are actually there. And I feel like I'm kind of alone in this because I feel like most other people I talk to say that they definitely do not want to see the homeowner there.
Okay, I'll say when I was a single woman, I liked it when the homeowner was there. When it was, there was a woman in the house. When there was just a male host, it creeped me out a little bit.
Fair. Fair.
Sorry to hashtag not all Airbnb male hosts. Nobody was ever creepy to me, to be clear, but it unsettled me a little bit to just be like, I'm in this house with this strange man I don't know.
Yeah.
But when there was a woman in the house, it was nice, and you got restaurant recommendations and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you didn't have to be like besties with them, but sometimes you would click, and it just felt like a more organic way to connect with people, to see the city through the eyes of someone who actually lives there. But yeah, now I feel like it's become a kind of just blank slate of a house with all of the decorations from Home Goods, and you don't really get any flavor. And
that like greige pastel, like nothingness in the decorations, like a home flipper aesthetic. Yeah,
a live, laugh, love. Sometimes if you're lucky, But yeah.
Only if you're lucky. Okay, if we're lucky, we're going to get to one more story really quick here in Front Page. I'm speaking with Jane C. who, by the way, who is the host of CityCast Seattle.
Hey, where's the beef?
the beef. That's right, folks. We are ending this conversation with Jane with some beef because, Jane, I have a bone to pick with you.
Ooh.
I actually like the artist Henry. And I have heard that there is some Henry shade happening, specifically over on CityCast. So come at me. Henry, actually good. Unicorns, Sasquatch, beloved little squirrels that look like they probably have been consuming marijuana edibles. Delightful. I love them. Henry, you go with your bad self and your paintbrush.
Okay, I'll give some context. So we had Downtown Seattle Association's Director of Urban Design, Seth Geiser, on to talk about public art. And the question that I asked on the show was, is Henry the Taylor Swift of Seattle murals?
What does that even mean?
Okay, for me, and I think a lot of people in this town might have had this experience, you see Henry maybe the first month that you move to Seattle, and you're like, that's really charming. There's really sweet graffiti. Like, it's cool that we live in a city that values public art. 5 years go by, 10 years go by. You're like, I have seen 1 billion Henry murals. And first, I want to say that...
And every one lights up your life. Yes?
I feel like in this case, I want to separate also the art from the artist, because I've heard nice things about Henry as a person. So, like, no
amazing
shade to
personal
Henry.
story, overcame drug addiction, homelessness, etc.
Yes, he does have a great story. And sure, there's an argument for making something more beautiful, for just having public art around. But I want to see art that says something interesting, or at least something different, because I just keep seeing the same Henry pieces. I would love to see something else. And the other thing I have to say about Henry is that while I see there being a place for his work, I know that he always gets permission from the homeowner or the owner of whatever building he's
you're not going to wake up in the morning and realize Henry stopped by to like put a psychedelic owl on the side of your house without you knowing. I mean, it's welcomed. These people sign up for this. It's a delightful honor to have a Henry piece of art.
As is their right. But I think the interesting art that is happening in our city is all unsanctioned, because it means that you can say something real without having to like get permission that waters down the message inevitably. Like tribal roll call at the City Hall pit. I don't know if folks have seen this. It's all of the names of the Pacific Northwest tribes. Apparently, a couple people just showed up with white paint as a background and red paint to paint the names of the tribes. And it's just stayed up. Like, people respect it. Like, it was not sanctioned. And it's interesting because it actually sends a message about what the city has or has not done with that pit, which may be beyond the purview of this particular recording. Or
Hot
St.
Rats. Yeah,
exactly.
I was going to say Hot Rat Summer. Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
the back and forth with, painting over it and then people freeing it. And now the artist has a new piece up at Pike Place, which I got to see yesterday, and it's delightful.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm not going to argue. Far be it for me to argue with Hot Rat Summer, which I agree is one of the best pieces of public art in the city. I have not seen the tribal names art yet, but I will check it out. All I'm saying is, back off. A guy has a signature style and it is working for him, and it's called Sasquatches Everywhere You Turn. We're in the Pacific Northwest. It is totally regionally appropriate. It's colorful, and everybody needs to get off Henry's back. That's my hot take.
I do like seeing an artist succeed, because I feel like part of this narrative of being an artist sometimes is being the starving artist that never receives the recognition you deserve. And I feel like Henry's story is a nice one in that he's getting all of the recognition, right? Like, Henry is the most recognizable public artist. So, good for him in that way.
But you know what? With all that recognition, you also get the haters. Like
It's true.
Jane C. Who? That's who you send your. That's
how
who
you know
your
you've made
angry
it.
emails to, and that's who you go after, Henry. Gosh, this was so fun, Jane. Thank you so much. Host of CityCast Seattle, here for Front Page on Soundside, and the beef. I feel like the beef is going to continue.
You got to come on CityCast,
Yes,
Libby.
this is the next stage.
Yes.
Is I got to come on CityCast. We got to keep this beef going.
Yes, it'll culminate in a cage match.
All the best media figures, they have beefs. That's what I've heard, at least. Thank you, Jane. This has been fun.
Thanks so much for having me, Libby.
And you're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Dankman. By the way, we did get a response from Mayor Katie Wilson's office about the Seattle City Light leadership situation that we talked about earlier this hour. The mayor's spokesperson, Sage Wilson, said in a statement, the mayor is confident Dennis McLaren is the right choice to lead City Light on an interim basis until Mayor Wilson can launch a national search process this fall for its next permanent leader. Dennis is extremely well qualified for the role, which is why he previously emerged as one of the top finalists for the City Light GM and CEO search process in 2018. Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime right here online at KUOW.org, or of course on your favorite podcast app.